Hey guys, Jay here, and today I want to make a quick build guide video on this character that I'm currently playing. It is the Lazy Juggernaut, which is a cast when stun tank character using the detonate dead of chain reaction, and of course with cast when stunned, and then of course desecrate as well to generate the corpses, so the detonate dead chain reaction can actually, keep on going basically. So the first thing that this build is different from the other cast when stunned, which is the chieftain, normally with fulcrum, the pathfinder, normally do poison stuff, and of course the saboteur as well, also do poison. The difference is this build, this juggernaut has a lot more damage for single target, and that is because the staff that I am using, the weapon of choice here, is the Annihilating Light, which makes your character deals triple damage with elemental skill. Of course, it is including this fire skill, Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction, which is the main source of damage. The trade-off for this very powerful weapon is actually 60% reduced elemental resistances. This is actually bigger than you might think, because it is a less multiplier to whatever resistances you are having. So basically, it is not just minus 60% resistant, it is 60% less. For every 100 resistant you are having for elemental, you only receive 40. So that is the reason why a lot of my gears are dedicated toward just life and resistances. And I even use the bismuth, which is the flask that give you basically just elemental resistances. With the mage blood, of course. With this version, I am able to drop the purity of element. I used to use it until very recently, where I just have enough resistances, and decided to drop it so I can have another setup basically, and I will explain a little bit later. The build, the core concept for defense is, first of all, defines a destiny. This acts as a very strong recovery layer that basically protect you against anything that doesn't one-shot your character. Because if you don't get one shot, this amulet will just heal you by a huge amount, and then before you take any second hit. So basically it is a very strong for anything that doesn't one shot the character, literally. And of course we are using it along with a lot of mitigation layers, and the first one is the fourth vows over here. The special thing about the fourth vow that I am using here is armor also applies to chaos damage taken from hits. And this is, of course, on top of the 80% chaos resistance that we are having here. So normally you take 100 chaos damage. You have 80% resistance, so you only take 20. And then that 20 will be mitigated by whatever the amount of armor, which, by the way, as you can see here, this is the setup for the maximum tankiness that I am having right now, around 117k armor, which is very decent. But for mapping, normally I would swap in the Quicksilver Flask so I can have 85k armor only, but I still, am pretty decently on in terms of speed. It's not the fastest character, it's not designed to be the fast character, but it's okay. The speed is acceptable, right? And the last flask is the Bottle of Faith currently. I like this one. It you can use Progenesis. I mean, if you use Progenesis, if you have the Progenesis active, if you see in the POE, and of course I will include the POE in the description, if you see the POE, you will see a much higher EHP pool. And yeah, but because for the content that I am doing, I don't think I need more tankiness. I just basically switch out the Progenesis and use the Bottle of Faith over here. It does help with damage, more damage. The rare gear, of course, life and resistances mostly. We have the Valerium Ring, which is a core required item in this build. It makes your stun threshold based on any energy shield, and as you can see, I have 0 out of 0 energy shield here. So every single hit which deals 1 damage and above will just stun the character, and then of course trigger the cast when stun stuff. And yeah, the second ring I am using Original Sin. This is like the end game version. I can afford this one, but this is not at all required for the build to function. If you have it, you have basically double the damage. But if you don't have it, you're still fine, because you will have probably around still 25 to 30 million Guardian DPS, and with 100% Delirious, that is around 7 millions, I think, which is enough to do, like, for example, if you are soloing Kosis in a Simulacrum, you can do it, right? Okay. The flask for Mage Blood, I am using Amethyst Flask with shock avoidance to deal with shock. With the effect of the flask, I am having 101% here, which is enough to be immune to shock. I have immune to bleeding and corrupted blood. Increased armor, because we do skills armor. Armor applies to chaos damage from here and to elemental damage as well. I will explain in the passive tree. And then Quicksilver Flask or Basalt, right? Last flask is Spot of Faith. And that is the gear. I'll go through the link in the link skill gem in a little bit, which is Deadly Chain Reaction, because I have Original Sin. This is Void Manipulation. If you don't have Original Sin, this should be Fire Penetration, because it's fire damage. And then Cast when stunned, Elemental Focus, Concentrated Effect, and Life Tap. This is for the maximum amount of damage. And the AoE is still respectable, so I normally do not even switch for increased area. You can do it, right? But it's not needed, in my opinion, at least from what I see so far. Cast when stunned second setup is with Desecrate, Spell Cascade. This can be normal Spell Cascade, by the way. And Feeble, it doesn't really do anything. The Spell Cascade, the Awaken. Life Tap, and also Tornado of Elemental Turbulence. This in particular, why do I still use this skill gem? I seems to be obsessed with it, and yes, I am. But because I am Original Sin, so I deal chaos damage. So this Touch of Cruelty, I need some hinder source, and this is a good one, right? The other cast when stun setup is on the glove here with Life Tap, of course, Punishment, and Immortal Cold. I am not using Blood Magic. I am using my mana to reserve a bunch of auras and stuff. So I still need to link Life Tap to every single link here. It is actually the best way for the Juggernaut. I have tried from the last league. This is the tankiest way. This is tankiest and probably the most efficient. So then the other setup is Blood Magic linked to Call to Arms and Enduring Cry. So we have more, charges, mitigations, and regeneration, and Flame Dash. So it is the movement skill. The reservation currently is Enlighten level 4. This is important, and with this kind of investment, Enlighten level 4 for 16, 17 Divine is nothing, right? This is very important, so you can fit Determination, which is 50%, Petrified Blood, which is 35%, and then Arctic Armor, 25%, all of them into your mana pool, and you still have a little bit left without having to take any reservation in the skill tree or from any other sources. So this is very, very important in order to fit this one in. If you are on a lower budget, you do not need this, right? You probably should go for just Determination and, Purity of Element in the beginning anyway. Okay. Next one, we are done with the gem setup and the item. Next one is going to be the gear. And the first thing interesting, I mean not the gear, the passive skill tree, and the things that are the most interesting here I would like to mention first is, of course, the Glorious Vanity with Sibakwa, which allow me to get Divine Flesh. This convert half of the elemental damage that I take to chaos damage, and it's all sources, right? So you already see that I first of all have 80% chaos resistances instead of like 76, 77 for the elemental. So that is already an improvement. Second, you are less vulnerable to penetration for elemental. For chaos, normally you don't even see chaos penetration from monsters. So yeah, that is very, very good. And of course, it's synergy really well with the fourth vows, because the fourth vows allow the armor to actually mitigate all the chaos damage, which is half of the elemental damage we are taking as well, right? The Ascendancy here also double down on the armor. I wish KFC really bring back the double down. But anyway, it applies 8% of the armor applies to fire, cold, lightning, damage taken from hits. This along with this as well. When you are at maximum endurance charges, you get 8% reduced elemental damage taken. So against elemental damage, we have a huge amount of mitigation. Even though you see my maximum resistances is not that high, that is because I have multiple ways to deal with it. That is even, I think, better than maximum resistances because they are not vulnerable to penetration. So yeah, I think we are very good on that end with the Divine Flesh, Timeless Jewel, name of Sibako. As you can see here, you probably will not get the same number as I do. I mean, I get this jewel for only 3 divine. I have a video showing the ways that I used to find these kind of jewels for the build, so you know, if you want to, you can check it out. But if you have Original Sin, what you are looking for is basically chaos damage and chance to inflict Wither on as many notable as possible, right? As I have here quite a lot, so it improved my damage significantly. And if you are doing a non-Original Sin version, instead of chaos and Wither, you look for fire and penetration. That will improve your damage very much. And this is the first jewel, right? The first circle. The second circle is working with the first circle, which is the impossible escape. And with this slot over here for a timeless jewel, you can actually use 2 different versions of a possible escape. One is around Iron Will, and the second one is around Glancing Blow. And around Glancing Blow will allow you to take these 2 nodes over here if they are good. I am using for Iron Will, so I can take these 2 over here, right? So it allows you to allocate passive in the radius around the keystone. And it combos really well with Timeless Jewels, basically, because they change the notables into very powerful stuff normally. Next circle, this is the Perandus Pact. This is not invented by me or anything. Someone in Reddit discovered this one very early on and shared with everybody. So what I am using here is the Perandus Pact. Sorry, I zoom out. Yeah, I think this is perfect. Perandus Pact for increased fire damage here. So every single node that is in this area will give you extra 6% fire damage. Right? As you can see here, always there is extra fire damage. And combo with the Unnatural Instinct over here. So all of these nodes, right, that is overlapped between these 2 jewels, you will gain the benefit of the Perandus Pact, which, if you can see on the 3rd line over here, is 126% increased fire damage just from this area. And of course, we do have allocated life points here. This becomes super efficient. Even this small node with the tattoo, it becomes like 11% fire damage, which is very good for 1 point. For 1 small point for traveling. And so yeah, this combo basically gives me 198% fire damage. Super good in this area. Highly recommended. If you are in a earlier stage of the build, if you are doing, like, for example, let's just say normal mapping, you can use the Perandus Pact for maximum life as well. That is going to be just as good, because this will give you a lot more life. You will be more tanky, you will not die, you will gain level, and then when you gain enough level, when you are tanky enough, you can switch out to fire damage for basically more damage, right? In my version, by the way, in Original Sin, you can use chaos damage as well, but I think fire damage is cheaper. Basically the same. Fire damage is also usable for all the versions. Okay, the next thing I want to mention is the cluster jewel. I am using Touch Cruelty, Wicked Pale, or Wicked Pole, and Unholy Grace. So I get these 2 and get 2 Socket. These are Immutable Force and Blood Notch. Very basic combo, classic, required for cast when stun build. It makes you basically unaffected by stun, right? So you are not staggering all the time without even being able to move. And then you will gain a lot of life back as recoup from every hit that's done, which is every hit, by the way. the keystone that we are having instead of just traveling here, right? So the passive, it's a small passive. I will not explain it. I will only explain the mastery. This one is reduce extra crit along with this body armor and some of the tattoo over here. We use a lot of tattoos in this build, right? Makes me 100% like immune to crit damage, which is very important for being tanky. We are going for this mastery over here, 10% of fist taken as chaos. Chaos is, you know, the king, as you can see from Divine Flesh, from 4th House. The agnostic, so it makes our energy shield becomes 0 and we always get stunned. This is mandatory for this setup because the 4th vows here have quite a lot of ES, and with everything else that we take in skill tree, we have around like more than 500 ES, which is not ideal for castman stunned. That is using the Valerium in this case, right? Of course, I get the life here. The mastery for life is flat life, and then very important, you count as low life while at 55% of maximum life or below. So this basically translates into 10% more life if you are using it with Petrified Blood, and we are using Petrified Blood. Next one, Sublime Vision. Because right now I am using only Determination as the only aura, I go towards Sublime Vision. You don't need to use it. It is basically this translates into 20k armor and 1 maximum charges. I think it's worth it, but it's not required whatsoever, right? So if you don't have the jewel here, if it becomes very expensive for us for some reason, just get percent life and some damage. It'll be just fine. The mastery for recovery here is recoup instead occur over 3 seconds. This basically makes your recoup 25% stronger because it happened over, let's say you recoup 100 life, it happened for 4 seconds, that means 25 per second. If it happened in 3 seconds, it is 33.33 life per second, right? And we get all the way here to Leafy Shade in order to deal with damage over time, basically. Along the way, I am getting Elemental Overload as well. This is just 40% more damage because we hit so many times, so we will always have this one up. And especially with the extra crit chance from this, you will always have Elemental Overload, basically. I do take the Strength Note over here, and I tattoo it with the Journey tattoo with the body. It gives me 50 life for each note because I have 2, right? So it is 100 flat life. It is very, very good in my opinion. I also currently am having 2 dexterity point. If you want to remove this both this point, I need to improve my gear here, and if you have some dexterity in your gear, 47 in this case to be specific, you will be able to remove these 2 points and spend it somewhere, maybe some extra life, because you have a lot of life left, right? Right. And this is very important as well. Corpse life, super good. Let me see. The Watcher's Eye I am using right now, the only role that matters is the armor while affected by determination, and yeah, that's it. Nothing else. In the next 5 levels, because I still have 5 more levels, right? The first one I'm going to take is, of course, the 1 maximum endurance charge here. The second one I'm going to take, and I need to confirm this, but I still going to share it anyway. 10% less physical damage taken while on full energy shield. We have 0 out of 0 energy shield, so technically we are always on full energy shield. That is how I believe it works, but if it doesn't, then we can just change it to something else. And then, you know what, the other points that I am going to take are just going to be basically the leftover life nodes. Maybe the life and armor is also quite strong, right? Or even come here, get the regen, get the life and armor over here. Pretty strong, because we are scaling both armor and life for tankiness, of course. So yeah, that is, you know, basically the guide for this build. Oh, Pantheon, I forgot to mention most of the time. Pantheon, I always use Soul of Rarakali and Soul of Shakari in a Casper Stun tank build. because we are afraid of, mostly for tank build, the most hard to deal with and most dangerous kind of damage is damage over time. And so yeah, so Shakari is extra good in this particular build because we are in 4th Vows. We are converting a lot of damage taken into chaos. So 5% reduced damage taken here applies to a lot more than you think. Right? I think I already talked about the Ascendancy, but if I didn't, here it is, right? It doesn't really matter the order that you take. I think just take the Endurance Charge stuff, or take this first, so you can easily level up with Righteous Fire, or maybe even Bone Shatter. You can easily level up with Untiring here, right? For leveling, I personally would recommend either Righteous Fire, you can follow Pox for it, or Bone Shatter. I would recommend you can follow Traffic, I would say, but leveling for Bone Shatter or RF is actually quite straightforward. You just breeze through. I personally, if I have to re-level, I would go for a Volcanic Fissure of Sneaking with the deck stacking Hollow Palm setup. And I have the setup over here. It basically is just a lot of movement speed, right? A 6-lane and the Astra Mantis, 2 of these, the Hoop. Yeah, basically that is what I am going to go for if I need to level this character. I do have a leveling video on the Hollow Palm. I think it applies to almost everything in the game that you can even level up with Hollow Palm. Just rush straight to a closest possible cluster jewel socket and then get the Hollow Palm, and then you will just face roll the game from then. It is from like level 15 to 17 something around Act 2 of the campaign, and you can do it, right? So is there anything else that is left about the build? No. If you only care about this part, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you find this build enjoyable, and I will be able to showcase a additional tier 17 here to end the video, and so it will take a little bit more, but the information on the build guide is completed. And so yeah, let's just run a quick tier 17. Normally I would not recommend you to just face roll tier 17 with this build. It can run it, but there are mods that you need to avoid, right? There are mods that are very, very obvious that you need to avoid. Oh, I forgot. I think I forgot to get back to basic. This is bad. But hey, I'm still leveling this character. I have done a few tier 17 back to basic. With the current level, I'm not deathless because, yeah, it's not finished, right? So I still get one shot by bosses with very hard modifiers like plus 500% elemental, physical as extra elemental, something like that, right? So I still can get one shot from a lot of difficult monsters and difficult modifiers in tier 17, but I think all builds kind of have that problem. So the mods that you cannot run with this build for tier 17 are, first of all, anything that prevents you from recover. So no regen is okay, but less recovery with back to basics, it is undoable, because less recovery applies to everything basically. I am running, by the way, it is Union of Soul. Yep. So the monsters are quite extra tanky. I think Union of Soul, this mod is the same on back to basic and here. This is a build that actually can do Union of Soul. The problem with it is, first of all, less recovery as I've said, and of course with back to basic, if you have less area of effect on a build that do area of effect damage, you are unable to do any damage. So less area of effect is no. Less defense is also no, because it's remove all your armor with back to basic. Less recovery is super annoying because it makes your cooldowns like 1 second for the detonate chain reaction or something like that. You can still do it, but it will be very, very annoying. The drowning orbs, you cannot face tank it. You can do the map pretty easily, but you need to, avoid the drowning orbs basically. So it is a different playstyle compared to normally where you just basically face roll on everything, right? I am doing the Devourer. Okay, let me bring a... Cool. Okay. And, except for when you have like very difficult mod, you will be able to face tank most thing. Well, in this case, I cannot face tank that slam. You know what it is. Okay, let me try to do it. Let me see without Petrified Blood, because technically, right, without Petrified Blood, I actually have a higher one-shot pool. But with Petrified Blood, you basically are much less vulnerable to small hits. So let me see if I can take the slam. I mean, if you want to do this, you can avoid the slam, of course. But I personally, my choice is I want to really try to take everything. See, without Petrified Blood, we flicker a lot. With the little things. Is that the boss? I don't think that is the boss. Okay. The boss appeared and I don't know what killed me there. But yeah, this is the reason why I would not recommend you to do tier 17 early on. I would only recommend to do tier 17 on, let's say, if you are level 100 already. Just my personal opinion. I would, go for a leveling strat or something like simulacrum for anything below level 100, because you can have the experience and you will not die to random stuff like in tier 17. Tier 17 right now is probably the best thing, but it's also the worst thing in the game, right? Because of how bullshit GG is balancing the modifiers on tier 17. It's annoying to prepare, it is annoying to run mostly. Nobody is having fun with it, but everybody is having loot with it, so that is the problem. Those are very, very different things from each other. Well, I kind of am surprised that I am able to finish the build guide stuff in 20 minutes, something, I think. Even though the build, the video dragged out to the later part with tier 17 Union of Soul, as you are currently seeing here, but hey, it is what it is. And is it the worst Union of Soul? Jesus. This actually looks very scary. And these Devourer looks much scarier than it is normally, because of how big they are. Let's try. So I am using the Shrine Atlas because I am leveling the character. But for back to basic, it is actually not that much of a difference. The reason is you kind of have to roll. Oh, on that topic, by the way, I forgot to continue the list. So we cannot use like minus max with back to basic. I tried to run a minus max map. I mean, I can clear that map, right, with just the minus max, which is scaled to minus 38% something. My maximum resistances, and that is maximum all resistances, are like 40 and 35 something. And I have ran that map, and I can do it until the boss with just one shot. So it is doable if you do just the map, but nobody is doing tier 17 for just the map, right? You want to do the boss, you want to get the fragments, because some of the fragments are actually very, very expensive. Not very expensive, but decently expensive. So it is one source of income that you don't want to miss out. So I would say do not run minus maximum resistance, because it affects the chaos resistance as well. So that is super bad for this build, as we do take a lot of damage as chaos. Is this the last monsters? If you are doing the Pathfinder, you will see that the damage is significantly less than this. Except for the endgame version with Original Sin. With Original Sin, the Pathfinder have like the roughly the same amount of damage as the Juggernaut here. So what I would recommend for, like, for example, a new player who want to try this build, I mean, not only like new players to POE, but new players to this build, if you want to try this archetype, if you want to try this kind of thing, you should go for this version. Because if you are interested in this build, right, that means you are interested in standing still and just AFK in, let's say, simulacrum. For whatever reason, you are burnt out, you don't want to, you know, go blasting on maps anymore, you want to just stand in one place, then simulacrum is perfect for it, and this build is perfect for it. And so if you want to go ahead, give this a try, depend on your setup, depend on your budget, I would recommend you to try and get a Mage Blood, so it is way more consistent basically. But without a Mage Blood, AFK simulacrum wave 30 is completely possible, and also pretty reliable. You will die sometime, but mostly you will still be net positive in terms of experience if you just stay in some simulacrum, right? So that is everything I want to mention in this build, and this is everything I want to show in this video. So please leave a like if you think this is helpful, if you think this build is interesting. Please leave a like. I am still working on the cast when damage taken build, by the way. There are a lot of problems with it, and it's not gonna be easy, but just for anyone who is interested in the cast when damage taken Scion, just know that I am still working on it. The problem is, first of all, I need a actually leveled up Scion. I am level 97 on the Scion right now, and also I need to figure out the setup a little bit more to balance everything, and then to have a good... Basically, I need it to be tanky. It is the hardest part for the cast when damage taken loop. Normally, you are actually not tanky because you have to sacrifice mitigation for chaos, sacrifice mitigation for physical, so you can take the correct amount of damage in order to trigger these spells, and that is the hardest part to figure out, and I might even fail to fix it basically. So yeah, again, thanks for watching, and you know, if you want to, you can join the Discord and ask anything about this build. All the classes coming out. I also stream on twitch.tv/UncleJ69. I leave the link in the description. Normally the stream schedule is 10 p.m. EST to around 4 p.m. 4 a.m. EST the next day. So yeah, coming out. Oh, I also have Patreon. That is the last one. That is the last thing I want to mention. So leave a like, subscribe to the channel. You know, you want to connect to me with any other channel, feel free. I leave all the links in the description. And so peace. Thanks.